First thing first, let me give a shout out to Black Reality TV for hitting me up on this in the comments from my last upload video about this. And what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna let this video play. This in regards to the professor who wrote the book. Can my children be friends with white people? And so I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna let this ride. And while going through it, I'm gonna just do my little breakdown along the way and let y'all be for yourself. And as you see where the source comes from, it's from Fuck News. You know what I'm saying? And what you expect with Tucker Carlson. So let's get busy.
Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. We want to tell you about an op-ed that ran in the New York Times over the weekend you might not have seen. The writer, who's a law professor in New York called Prof Yanka, asked a simple question: can my children be friends with white people?
Now why he said called Prof Yanka? That's his name, asshole. You know, he should be saying named. His name happens to be Prof Yanka. Typical Peckerwood, man. Typical pasty ass queer. Anyway, continue.
He really asked it, and he wasn't optimistic. Quote, "I will teach my boys the lesson of generations old," he wrote. "I will teach them to be cautious. I will teach them suspicion. I will teach them distrust. I will teach my boys to have profound doubts that friendship with white people is possible." Well, those doubts mirrored the writer's own. As he put it, quote, "History has provided little reason for people of color to trust white people." That piece was one of the most popular on the New York Times website, even today. It was hardly unusual, though. Go to any liberal website, Salon, Slate, Vox, HuffPo, and you'll find similar pieces arguing that an entire racial group is untrustworthy and dangerous. This is a big change for the left. For most of the 20th century, liberals, and it was noble, argued that it was immoral to reward or punish people based on their skin color. Individuals ought to be judged solely by the choices they make. Anything less is bigotry. Liberals don't say that anymore. What happened? Prof Yanka is the author of that New York Times piece. He's a professor at Shiva University's Benjamin Cardozo School of Law, and he joins us tonight. Professor, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
So what struck me about this piece, a couple of different things, but the first thing was the generalizations about a racial group based on their race. And I grew up, I'm probably not so much older than you, in a world where overt expressions of that were not acceptable. You weren't allowed to generalize on the basis of race because the assumption was each person is an individual and you judge each person by the choices he or she makes. I don't understand when it became okay to...
Lie number one, Tucker. You like most of these white people that's in this world now. You're still living in this delusional bubble of fantasy bubble that you thinking like, you know, we all Americans, we all human, we all this. When history and documentations and research, scientific research clearly shows that the only true humans on this planet happens to be us, the indigenous and aboriginal beings of the continent of the Americas, North, South, and Central America. And so while y'all was born with tails and still were living in caves in the Caucasus Mountains because Europe rejected y'all ass. You know, he can't even bring himself to do it. That's a red flag. That shows the signs of a condescending racist in Fucker Carlson.
Generalize about racial groups.
Well, I mean, it's to me, a strange way to put the question. I mean, while it's the case that we all hope that we can be judged for who we are, I think while some people have the luxury to be raised only being told to look at individual people, it should be no surprise to you that black people, in particular black men, have been taught forever that they have to be careful how they behave around white people, that the way they behave will be interpreted differently, that when they misbehave, it'll be punished differently, that if they laugh too loud, if they walk into a nice store. So with all due respect, Tucker, what was true for you has never been true for lots of people.
Well, I mean, there are a lot of ways to respond to that. One, on a factual basis. And in truth, in a lot of places in this country, the main threat that African Americans face is not from white people, as you perfectly well know. But beyond that, the idea that you could understand a person's motive merely by knowing his race.
See, another red flag. The main threat is from my people is from the one entity that's gone around the world, and they destroyed everything that's natural, okay, that's indigenous, and it always has been white people. The majority of white people, that everywhere they go, it's like a parasite. Everywhere they go is nothing but disease, famine, plunder, loot, murder, rape, steal, all type of shit. And on top of the topic, like not to trust your children, not to trust white people, look what happened to our sister Jazzy when that fucking she-devil cave beast was basically using chemical warfare against her. Things from like putting outdated clam shit in her coconut oil and sticking the toothbrush up her rectum, and sister could have died. That's chemical warfare. All that out of jealousy, out of hatred. And Tucker Carlson shows that. Look at the expression on his face. He's already about to go red with anger and stuff. While the Professor Yanka is calm, cool, collective, and he's staying on code. Let's continue.
Dehumanizes that person. It's the definition of racism, and you're engaging in it in the New York Times, and nobody says anything about it. And I just felt it was worth pointing that out and asking you if you feel it's okay to generalize about people you've never met, about whom you know nothing beyond what they look like, and say, I know who you are and what you believe.
So I first want to respond to the first comment. I think is ought not be let lie. While it's true that, of course, people of color face threats from other people of color, it's also true that white people face the overwhelming threat from white people. That is,
right.
People face threats from who they live beside. So I find
exactly.
I think it's fair to point out that we oughtn't be distasteful and say things like, well, the great threat. It does feed a certain uglier narrative that we don't want. But to your core point,
wait, hold on. Why does the truth ever feed a, quote, ugly narrative? The truth is worth telling for its own sake because it's true.
You're welcome to tell the truth, but it is deeply suspicious that people are so quick to say things like the main threat facing African Americans is other African Americans, but you never hear anybody say the main threat facing white people is white people, right? So there is...
Exactly. Tucker was already about to throw the deflection out. He was already about to throw a deflective narrative out and stuff, but the professor wasn't having that. And exactly the truth what the professor's saying. You know, and this platform on Fuck News, they always talking about, what about black on black crime? And you know, you heard me say plenty of times in my videos, shit, ain't no such thing as black on black crime. That's a myth. And you know, I can't understand that how an adjective can commit a crime against another adjective, or a crayon commit a crime against a crayon. Don't make no sense. You know, when you got the majority of crimes that are committed in this country are committed by people like Tucker Carlson, so-called white people, with the victims and the agitated victims often turning out to be so-called white people, and it's at a steady rise. Shoot, just like the video Touring Rain showed of the brother who was recording the fight at the Broncos game between two pasty pinks and shit. That was white on white crime right there. Or should I say pink on pink crime? Let's continue.
No phrase white on white crime.
I don't know. I mean, people say that. I mean, I guess the point is, you don't face a threat from an entire racial group. You face a threat from individuals who made individual choices.
Well, we should turn to that. But just in closing, I should say we should be honest and not pretend that there is a phrase like white on white violence, right? That phrase doesn't exist for a very particular
we can invent it here. But I guess the point I'm making is...
See, now he wants to invent it. When you get called out on your bullshit, and the professor called them out on it, you know, plain and simple. Again, using deflection, another red flag. Professor 3, Sucker Carlson 0.
That you should never generalize about people on the basis of their skin color because it reduces them to the sum total of their skin color. And again, that's the definition of racism. And you're engaging in it in this piece. And I don't think it's helpful. I think it's wrong.
Well, so I just entirely deny that. What I said was that you should generalize and dislike people because of their skin color. What I do think is true is that in a world in which things have gotten ever more dangerous for people of color, it is in fact the case that that undermines our ability to trust each other across racial bounds. And here's what's true, or at least here's what I wrote. Not that white people aren't unavailable for friendship, but in this world, it is up to our white friends and allies to be sure to stand up for those who are under attack. If I want to prove that I'm the kind person who can be your friend, that means that when something is actually threatening you, I actually have to be there for you.
Okay, but again, you're making generalizations across racial groups. So you say, for example, I will have to discuss with my boys whether they can truly be friends with white people. History has provided little reason for people of color to trust white people. I have profound doubts that friendship with white people is possible. Again, these are... Okay, but if I were to write, I was mugged as a pizza delivery boy, and I told my children that they should never trust anyone who looks like the people who mugged me, that would be
another red flag. And I see Tucker just already started stereotyping right there. Typical caucus, pink, pasty pink inferior racist tactic. They always using that without, like that. So a motherfucker, when a cracker talk about saying, can't tell me that Hobgoblin 45 ain't racist. Just because they don't say the epithet doesn't mean they're not racist. They use code words, they use this, use that. Just like a lot of them same ones that infiltrated law enforcement on the local, state, and federal level no longer be sporting so-called white power tattoos and all that, and they operating using ghost skins and shit. Just don't have nothing. They still racist. Yeah. It's like when my daddy taught me, man, don't put nothing past none of them. Period. So again, Professor 4, Sucker Carlson 0.
I would never do that. I think that would be immoral. But it would be the definition of racism because I would be equating the people who mugged me with everyone else who looks like them.
I think if that's the only part of the article you read, it might sound like that. But of course, the article has a much richer argument. And the argument I make is, look, in a country where it turns out that when the most vulnerable people of color are under threat, those who they count on are nowhere to be seen, or at least for some group of people, and I speak explicitly about the political moment we're in today, right? So if we have a president who marshals forces of hatred and anger and divisiveness and frankly just danger, quite aside from who he is, I'm not particularly interested in who he is, if the people who call themselves your friends are not going to push back against that, then maybe you can tell me why it is I should trust those people.
Well, so I guess what you're saying is that people who don't agree with your politics can't be your friends, which I think is an unfortunate conclusion to reach, but it's different from the one you articulate here.
He didn't say anything about politics, Sucker Carlson. He just laid down, Professor Yanka just laid down some facts. And again, people pay attention to our enemy. Study your enemy. That's one of the first rules in the art of war. Study the person, your opposition. His people are the same type that brought out that bullshit dossier of the BIE, the quote-unquote so-called black identity extremists that, they try to lump the Moors and sovereign citizens and all that in there. As one of my brothers, Rami Sa'il, had talked about, I watched earlier. Anyway, again, he's trying to deflect again. He can't handle it. You look at the red and look at Tucker's eyes. He started to turn red as a lobster.
You're making, again, for the third time, generalizations based on race. And the truth about the last election is this is not a defense of Donald Trump, merely an acknowledgement of the fact that he received more African American votes than any Republican since 2004. I think he had 8% of African American men. So that's not a huge number, but that's tens of thousands of people. Are they in the same category too? Can you not trust them? I mean, I don't really understand. If you're saying you can't trust Trump voters, fine. But white people? I mean, that's a grotesque generalization, and it's divisive one.
I'm a little worried that you keep reading the same parts without, I mean, you would make it seem as though the entire piece was just that paragraph. So the piece goes on to say...
It's the title of the piece, and it's in four separate graphs.
So I have no problem standing behind the title of the piece, but it is worth pointing out, as I have again and again, what the piece says is, when those who count themselves as your friend see that others put you in danger, right, it is their opportunity to prove they're your friend. And if we have let's just speak plainly about this. Tucker, you have children like I do, right?
I do.
And if your daughters were, I don't know, friendly with a group of people, and it just turned out that repeatedly, when they went out and your daughters were in danger, those group of young men just disappeared. I think at some point you tell your daughters, look, it's fine to be friendly with them, but these are not your friends. You can't.
I guess I would, because I'm not a racist, what I wouldn't say is anybody of a certain race falls into that category. I would never do that. So again.
Okay. You know, see, that's the typical response. The professor called him out on his BS. And Tucker say, oh, I'm not a racist. Anytime a white person say that shit, saying that I'm not a racist, I would never do anything like that. Red flag on the plate. 15-yard, 20-yard penalty. Flip. Plain and simple. They're racist. Trust me. Trust me. His eyes tell it all. The Professor Yanka is basically, he's calm, he's collective. He got his head on straight. And see, this is what Tucker know. You ain't shaking this brother off his square. Plain and simple. That's the thing they try to do on there on Fox News. Because I've seen in the past how they bring so many brothers or sisters on there, and then they try to get them unglued off there, and people get caught up in the emotion. And the professor ain't getting caught up in emotion. He using logic. Sucker Carlson is being emotional. You know, his thong panties are wet now. Let's continue.
If one of my daughters was mugged by someone of a certain color, I would never say to my daughter, that's more evidence you can never trust anyone who looks like that, because I would be inculcating race hatred in my children, as you are.
So obviously I deny that. Look, what I said over and over was, we live in a country where we oughtn't pretend that these divides have not consistently been on racial grounds. And we see that over and over and over. When black people are in danger...
That's true.
When black people are in danger from, say, addiction, we get policing. When white people are in danger from addiction, they get rehabilitation. When black people don't have jobs, we get stories about why we're making the wrong choices. When white people don't have jobs, we get a presidential campaign about the forgotten class.
Well, you know, these are subjects I know a lot about, and I think those are gross generalizations.
See, every time, the professor bringing it, hitting him. He hitting him. And Tucker doing the tactic. He coming out, cutting them off, deflecting, and then try to change the narrative. But Professor controlled the narrative. Professor 6, Sucker Carlson 0.
Don't accept them.
So I'm going to go ahead and I'll finish, and then I'm happy to hear your point of view. So if it's the case that we live in a country where these divides have always consistently been racial, then I think it's not only delusional, but it would be dangerous of me not to teach my boys that when they walk out in the world, there'll be a world that treats them differently.
Should I say the same thing to my children? There are African-American law professors who dislike you because of your color, and you should dislike him back?
No.
And all African-American law professors? I would never say that, because that's grotesque. No, again, it's race hatred.
Okay, first thing first. See, white people always screaming out when we call them out on their BS. They talking about saying, oh, that's racist, da-da-da. I done have several trolls when I came on my channel on my recent post. Oh, especially the Kaepernick one. Oh, boy, look at here. You know. But here's the thing. How is it race hatred and white is not even a race nor a nationality? Just like black. Just like Hispanic. You know what I'm saying? It's status. And see, Sucker Carlson is one of the vanguards for quote unquote so-called, I don't even say use the term white supremacy because like I just said, white is not a race or nationality and ain't a goddamn thing supreme about them. As you can see, Tucker's all got his Messenger douche pad on between his thong panties and all up in his feelings because the professor is calling him out on his shit. Plain and simple. Because like when it comes down to race and racism, understand family that they're the ones, the pink aliens, you know, the pinks, they the ones who created it, you know. So it only makes sense that they the ones who dismantled it. Look what's going on in Capitol Hill right now. You know, they already turning on each other. So Professor 7, Sucker Carlson 0.
So, I mean, you keep saying the same thing, and I keep trying to say...
Because I can't get past it.
Apparently. So what I've said over and over is, look, what matters when people are in danger, if you're going to say that you're the kind of person they can trust as a friend, is you have to step up. And when it's the case that these friendship lines break down on racial lines, then it's your turn to step up because of these racial lines. So if I know that in my school, there's a tense point because everybody hates the Filipino student, when the Filipino student walks into my area, I'm going to make sure that he knows I'm an ally. I'm not going to disappear when he's in danger. And
right.
then,
no, I get
and then
that.
placate myself by saying I'm his friend. I can't.
But I actually agree. No, but I agree with you. It's when you implicate people you don't know simply because of how they look that you cross the line. Let me just ask you, and I'll end on a question and let you answer it quickly, which is, how would you feel if I told my children in an op-ed in the New York Times what you told your children, but the colors were reversed?
Actually, Tucker, can I ask you a question?
Of course.
Will you teach your girls to be cautious around men until they prove that they are men that can be trusted?
Men, but not men of a certain race, because I don't think that the races are as different as you think they are. You think one is good and one is evil. That's what you said in your piece.
I didn't at all say that in the piece, and if you can cite that, I'd be very happy to see it. But
you said you can't trust them.
I did say that, and I think in the same way.
Making headway, but I'm going to give you. I asked you a question. Can you answer it? How would you feel if I wrote that piece?
No, forgive me. You asked me a question, and I returned the question, so I want to conclude on that. Look, in the same way that
he realized, Sucker Carlson realized he can't really get to him. With the fake laugh, the fake stuff, but look at his complexion. He know deep down subconsciously he mad as hell. That you can't get out here and try to shame this brother. And kudos to to Professor Yanka for staying on code and staying straight on his square and standing behind his convictions and all that. See, and take a lesson from this family. That this is what we're capable of doing if we start using logic and get off of ego and emotions and don't act like juveniles. They know full well, these Cro-Magnon descendants know full damn well that they ain't got the capacity psychologically to go toe-to-toe with us, period. Sure, they could dress all up in a $1,000 suit and a $200 tie and all this other shit, and they look as presentable to some women as handsome and all that. But trust me, these are some evil, good-for-nothings. Period. Not all, just a majority of them. Sucker Carlson is 1. Professor 9, Sucker Carlson 0.
You will teach your daughters to be careful around men until they prove that they can be gentlemen. If somebody said, oh my God, that's outrageous, Tucker Carlson is teaching his daughters that men are evil, that would be laughable.
You're conflating sex with race.
Forgive me.
No, you forgive me, because we acknowledge differences between the sexes, but not significant ones between the races. Okay. And so that's sophism, what you're doing.
I don't think it's sophism at all. I find it remarkable that you can live in the America we live in and pretend that we oughtn't see that racial lines are equally divisive.
That's not what I was saying. saying. I said, would you be okay with me writing this piece to my children if the races were reversed? You haven't answered the question.
Because the facts are different, Tucker.
Oh, okay.
Listen,
because one goes bad, one's good. All right, got it.
That's absurd. If I don't teach my boys how to be cautious, how to be careful, how to be perceived in the right way,
all right,
I'm not just risking their feelings being hurt. I'm risking their bodies being broken.
Should I teach my kids that?
You don't teach your daughters to be cautious until they can be sure that the men around them are trustworthy?
That's not what the conversation is about. It's not about sex.
See, he trying to make it about race. Now, the professor did bring up a good point. Yeah, I teach my nephews and my nieces like I taught them. I say, be cautious, be careful, watch them MFs. Do not trust them right there on the fly. You know, as teachers, that's what Nelly Fuller say when it comes down to people. If you say they say they ain't a racist, let them prove it. Just because, you know, I come across a European, they may smile and all that stuff like that, but man, look here, I'll be like, sure. I'm only gonna deal with you from a 10-foot pole, from arm's length, basically. I'm only gonna go so far with you. But when it comes down to our babies, yeah, we got to teach them how to learn how to be on guard. You know, we got to teach them how to learn to, you know, watch these motherfuckers, man. But see, one of the rules when you grow up in the hood is like, you know, I watch everybody. Watch everybody. Not just your own, but when it comes down to them, yeah, watch them. Watch them. The professor is absolutely right. You know, Tucker wants to keep it out there about race. And see, he asked Tucker a question, saying, so you don't teach your girls about being cautious? And to any of those white people that's listening, you should be teaching them the same thing too. That if you got daughters or sons and they be around a group of the opposite gender, shoot, you ought to teach them the same damn thing. It ain't got to be nobody from my demographic. That's for sure. But see, people like Tucker, that's who y'all want to listen to. That's who want to try to get out there to deflect. He's still living in this delusional bubble of fantasy, thinking that it's kumbaya, that people of all different of indigenous origin, different ethnic backgrounds are going to be sitting around a goddamn campfire cooking s'mores. Nah, man, it doesn't work like that. We live in the real world. And we're going to teach our babies the reality of what goes on out here, especially in the era of Hobgoblin 45. Professor 10, Sucker Carlson 0.
It's about race.
Right.
And don't teach them that there are dramatic differences between the races.
So to be sure, it's fine for you to care for your daughters and make sure that they're healthy and well. But if I care for my sons in the same way.
That's it, ladies and gentlemen. We're out of time. Thank you, Professor. I appreciate it. You're coming on and explaining that. Thank you. Jeremy Hunt is an active U.S. Army officer. He's a leadership strategist for the Douglas Leadership Institute, and he joins us tonight.
Okay, and just like clockwork, they bring in Captain Coon. Dun, 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 dun. Don't worry, white people. I'm coming here to save you all. Listen to this leatherneck. You know, I hate to say leatherneck, but you know, I know that's a Marine term, but you know. This moron basically like this who look like he can't rub two pennies together to make a nickel. Anyway, let's go.
Thanks for coming on.
It's great to be on with you.
Great to be on with you. It just seems to me, the reason I want to do that,
I think what LVZ does this a lot better than I could, you know, because he's officially the coon hunter. I gave the title up months ago. Anyway, you can always tell these coons, they always want to come on Fox News showing all their pearly whites and doing all that and looking like so goddamn punkified. It just makes me sick to my stomach. Ugh. You know, bitch ass. Anyway, let's go.
was I feel like there's a lot of to be blunt, racial tension in America, and I want to make sure that everyone with a public voice is doing his or her best to make it better. And part of that means treating people as individuals rather than as caricatures, I think.
Absolutely. I mean, and of course, everything I say on the air is just my personal views. I just find it incredible that here we have a law professor spewing out such divisive rhetoric, stoking fear. I mean, when I was young, my father...
Hold up. How is he divisive rhetoric, stoking fear? No. What's the definition of fear? Fear is basically an acronym. False evidence appearing real. And so for this Jeremy Hunt, who looked like he should be on the damn Chips Ahoy commercial, oversized muscle-bound Carlton Banks, you know, how's he bringing something like that? Please explain to me, but you tap dancing buttermilk biscuit eating bastard. Continue.
Taught me just the basic principle. He said, me, especially as a Christian, that I should love my neighbor regardless of their race, that I should strive to live in harmony with the people.
See, he just mentioned one of the aspects that white supremacy has their hands in, and I'm just going to use it for this: religion, another form of control. That he's Christian, and that love thy neighbor and all this stuff like that. So let me get this straight. If I say, like, if I move over to Davie, and my neighbors who happen to be white flying a freaking Confederate rag, and they talking all this white power stuff, saying like, nigger, what the hell are you doing here? And all this other crap. You know, I'm supposed to show love to a demographic of people who basically still continue to this day, you know, bringing drugs, alcohol into our communities, to cause stop reproduction, gunning down our babies down here in the streets, gunning down unarmed men, women, and all this, you know, raping them, disrespecting them, so on and so forth. If I'm lying about that, then why the FBI bring out that stupid dossier, that BIE shit? Oh, but you know, he don't see that. And I guarantee you that he's swirling too. I guarantee you, I can look at him and tell he's a fucking swirler. Let's go.
Regardless of what they look like. I mean, these are basic principles that people learn in grade school. How is it that at 24 I'm having to tell a law professor not to make these generalizations of entire groups of people?
It does seem like that is the line. I mean, you have to keep alive the possibility that just because people look alike doesn't mean they are alike. Do you know what I mean? I mean, I look like, I guess, there are a lot of terrible white people through history. I'd hate to take responsibility for their crimes. Do you know what I mean? I want to take responsibility for what I do and not what anyone else does. That seems fair to me.
Exactly, and then the more we kind of engage and entertain these conversations about how the entire groups of people are racist, the more we're actually playing into the hand of actual racists. I mean, if you're a white supremacist in this country, you're guaranteed news coverage, you're guaranteed to talk about all these great things, and we play right into their hand. I mean, we are basically,
which your dumb ass is already doing, especially on that platform. Fox News has always been a platform for the alt-lights and the rest of these other idiots. How many times we done seen that asshat Richard Spencer come through over there, or any of these other ones and stuff, like John Kelly, like Pence, and the rest of those other idiots. Or better yet, they hold the grand stage and stuff for Hobgoblin 45. That proof enough right now. This, I should say, quote unquote male, or should I say, and I say that in quotes, male, again, wearing thong panties, being in their feelings, doing this like that, swirling, and all that. And yes, the answer to sucker call, it was so-called white people like you, dressed like that, were the ones, if you go back to those old pictures that some people have, I even got them, where there's a mob group of them burning a black person in in a bonfire or hanging them, nail them to a telephone pole and cut their legs and hands off to keep them climbing and burn them alive. All that shit like that. Just like you, Tucker, you know, with your hair flopped over to the side, people, you know what I mean.
Carrying out their goal of a divided United States when we see pieces like this come out in the New York Times. I mean, it is deeply disturbing.
When did we start believing in collective guilt? You're responsible for things done by people you've never met. When did that become a concept? I thought the whole point of America was that we don't believe that.
That is the whole point. Because see, when the Europeans came over here to the Americas, to the continent of North America and stuff, they're the ones who brought the diseases over here, the bubonic plague, the rats and all that stuff like that. You killed off our food supply, which was the American bison, damn near wiped them out to extinction, just like you did other nearly indigenous species across the globe. Just like I just came across a North African white rhinoceros. The last one was just recently killed. Rare species, now it's officially extinct. It's not us that's doing that. We've learned to go ahead to coexist with nature. Only these Caucasians that come up out their caves want to destroy everything that they touch. It's just like them damn zombies from The Walking Freaking Dead. And I'm not a fan of that damn show, by the way. But this reprobate on the right here, I just like to slap the shit out of him.
Exactly, and basically if you look at after the civil rights movement, the new kind of protest politics, they took on this new line of basically everyone's going to feel this collective guilt, and we're going to trade you some type of moral authority in exchange for making you feel better about your guilt. I mean, it's ridiculous, it's divisive, and instead of viewing people based on the content of their character, we're still seeing this kind of movement to try to basically make displays of social justice and make displays of, we're helping, the inner city community or whatever it might be, without actually looking to see if these policies are actually having a positive effect on our country.
Yeah, it's creating wounds that will not heal for a long time, unfortunately. Mr. Trump, thank you very much.
He said inner cities. Like you ain't never grew up in the... Man, get the fuck out of here. Definitely a swirler. And my apologies earlier to the Marines, to friends of mine as a Marine. No, he's U.S. Army officer, but that's still a shame though, because a few of my friends, my brother is a vet, and he wouldn't even be with this shit. You know, I know one LVZ, General Africa, Captain PY2, Sergeant, I know all them brothers. They served. This guy, clown.
Exactly right. Good to see him.
All right, I tell you, this is let me know what y'all think about this in the comment section. Share, subscribe, click the bell, notification bell, so therefore when you'll be alerted when I upload new videos. And at the same time, you can also, if you would like to donate to my PayPal, your donations are greatly appreciated. With that said, love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. No more talk. I'm done. Peace and love. I'm out.